Hello everyone. This afternoon I'm going to talk about the first two topics of the summer poems in Eikyū hyakushu, and they are the Kamo festival, Kamo no Matsuri, and summer garb, Natsugoromo. What I'll do is I'll talk a little bit about what the topics are about and what they mean, then go through the poems, and when we come across something which might need some further comment, some explanation about what the poem means or about the vocabulary in it, then I'll comment on that too. So let's get started with the Kamo festival. Well, the Kamo festival refers to the annual festival of the Kamo shrine, which is located in the northeastern part of the capital, Kyoto. In fact, Kamo shrine, Kamo jinja, is something of a misnomer for the institution, as it's actually two separate shrines. But it's thought of as being one sort of place where you go and visit. Now, these two shrines are among the city's oldest shrines. In fact, they predate Kyoto becoming capital and were being visited and patronized by the imperial family when the capital was still located in Nara back in the 8th century. The festival itself takes place, or traditionally took place, on the day of the cock in the middle of the 4th month. And it was one of the really major and important events of the imperial court calendar. As part of the events, an imperial messenger would go from the imperial palace to the shrines with a message of greeting and respect from the emperor to the deities of the shrines. And the messenger will be accompanied by a designated imperial princess, who was given the title of Saiyo, which is often translated as Kamo Virgin. Again, part of the festival's decorations and general gorgeousness was that hollyhocks, or aoi, were used as decorations on the design for the clothing. The actual hollyhocks themselves were used to decorate carts and the shrine itself during the events. And so colloquially, the festival itself has come to be known as the Kamo, as the Hollyhock Festival, the Aoi Matsuri. And that's the title by which it is still known today, because the festival and the events are still taking place today, although there's no longer an imperial princess sent to the shrine every year. As a result of the sort of beauty of the accoutrements and the impressiveness of the procession, nobles from Kyoto and people from elsewhere would throng to the capital, line the streets, and watch the procession from the palace to the shrine. And conflicts over the best viewing spot, so you can get the best view, were very common. There's a literary account of this in Genji Monogatari, the Tale of Genji, where Genji's principal wife, the Lady Aoi, visits the festival, and her attendants damage and break the carriage of another lady, Lady Rokujo, as they basically push it out of the way so that Aoi can get the best view. Now, Rokujo happens to be one of Genji's other lovers, and this insult is enough to send her spirit off on a murderous rampage. But that particular issue is not something I'm going to talk any more about today. Now, the Kamo festival first appears as a formal topic for poetic composition in Eikyū hyakushu, in this collection. So the poems we're about to see now were the very first ones formally composed as part of a larger literary event for this topic. 珍しく年にひとたび青いよや、神も嬉しとみそのわすらん。Strangely, but once a year, do on the hollyhocks the gods with pleasure seem to gaze? 白くもの家の落ちなる国人も、今日の見荒れに泡のわらじな。Beyond clouds of white, 50-fold the distance where provincial folk for this festive day are certain to meet together. And Nakazane's reference here to kunibito, people from the provinces, is evidence of the wide enjoyment of this festival, that people from far away from Kyoto would actually gather there in order to see the events and pay their respects at the shrine. 引き連れて渡る景色を来てみれば、いつきぞ神の飾りなりける。Drawn by the broad prospect have I come to see. Purity it is, the gods does garland. Now, one of the euphemistic names for the Saiyo, the Kamo Virgin, was in fact Itsuki no Miya, Princess of Purity. So by using that particular term in his poem, Itsuki, then Toshiyori is recollecting the beauty and purity of the Shrine Virgin. I say beauty, but it's not the case that the princess who went there was always a young girl, and a princess could remain Sayo for many, many years. So it's entirely possible that she could be an older or mature woman. Kakete yuku hito wa kawaredo toshi o hete, onaji iro naru aoi gusa kana. All garlanded they go, the folk do change, yet with the passing years, ever the same are the hues of the hollyhocks. So Tadafusa here is situating the Kamo festival as an annual rite, something which happens again and again eternally, with that sameness of the colours of the hollyhocks. It's a reassuring poem that tells the reader that all is right with the world, everything is as it should be. Miyabito no kazashite kaeru aoi gusa, murasaki no nite midori naru kama. The courtiers return, heads garlanded with hollyhocks. The violet fields all turn to green. Well, the term murasaki no, which Kanemasa uses in his poem here, is in fact a place name. It's the name of the part of the city, although it's actually outside the city, where Kamo festival is located, the Kamo shrines were located. So here he's saying that so many people flock to this place called Murasaki no, that it's turned into a sea of green. Hito yorimo tanomizu kakuru aoi gusa, wakite mo kami no shirushi misenam. Rather than the folk, their prayers are hidden by hollyhocks. Part them and the god sign is revealed. Now I wonder reading this whether Higo is taking a sly dig at the attending people going to the festival, that maybe they're there more for having a good time than they actually are to enjoy, or that they are there to enjoy themselves, whether they're there to actually for religious reasons or not. Toshi o hete kyo kazashi kuru aoi gusa, kami ni tanomi o kakuru shirushi ka. A year has gone by, and today all come garlanded with hollyhocks. To the gods a secret prayer made manifest, perhaps. Now one wonders, reading this, what that secret prayer might be. Obviously, you pay your money and you take your choice. But I think the implication of people coming back for yet another year, it suggests perhaps praying for long life, that things should go on as they should do. Okay. That's the last of the Kamo festival poems. Now we move on to the next topic, which is Natsugoromo Summer Garb. Well, the nobles of Kyoto, and indeed elsewhere in Japan, changed their clothing to online summer clothing with the official beginning of summer at the 4th month. And that obviously made the heat of summer much more bearable. Poems on this topic have been composed for centuries, long before Eikyū hyakushu. And there are various different implications of summer garb poems. Sometimes that the clothing was still too hot and uncomfortable even in the heat of summer, or at the beginning of summer that it was too thin to ward off the remaining chill. As a formal topic for poetic composition, Natsugoromo was first assigned in 1041, so the Eikyū poets composing about 70 years later had many precedents to draw on and many different ideas about what they should be saying with these poems. Nuki yusumi oreru koromo no ikanareba tamoto ni kaze o nao hedetsuran. Weft so thinly woven guard, what to make of it? Will the sleeves to the wind yet prove a barrier? So here Akinaka is drawing on this well and familiar trope, that it's still quite chilly at the beginning of summer, and the breeze may cut through the thin clothes which he's now expected to wear. Toki to ieba makane moto kuru natsu nare ya, nao chigire kashi semi no hagoromo. The time is steel melting summer, still shredded are the cicada silk robes. I must say I actually love this poem, and I love particularly because of that phrase, makane moto kuru natsu, steel melting summer. It really captures the absolutely oppressive heat of a Japanese summer's day, which beats down on you. 夏頃も芋がむけしのあやなれや、裏なきさえぞ、下にきまうき。Summer garb, my darling's raiment has such a pattern to it. There is no underside at all for her to wear beneath. Well, here Toshiori is living up to his reputation for producing somewhat eccentric poems on occasion. And one wonders quite what to make of this. I think, though, it's actually quite an affectionate poem. He's gazing at a lady who he knows, and he's seeing her in her thin summer clothing for the first time, which is devoid of some of the constant overlayering patterns and images that would have marked out winter clothing. There is, in fact, an alternate version of this poem where he uses the word kimi, which could mean a senior male or a senior lady, and so is slightly more respectful. But I think I like this more affectionate version where he's talking to and about a lady who he knows well. さみだれに濡れにけらしな夏頃も一重日がきにかけて細なん By summer showers does seem drenched this summer garb, a single layer upon the cypress fence hanging there to dry. Again, I love this poem because it's just so evocative. One can imagine Tadafusa going down the streets of Kyoto in his ox carriage with the blinds drawn up, because of the oppressive summer heat. And he's gazing around looking at the scene, and he sees this robe hanging on someone's fence, and is immediately struck by that appearance and the questions it raises. Why has this person been out? What's happened? Why have they got so drenched? What's happened to them? Did they get caught in a sudden shower? Were they on business? Was it a lady? I like to think of this, that he's seeing a lady's robe hanging on a fence, and just imagining all the possibilities that might have arisen as to why she got wet and why she's had to hang her clothing on the fence to dry. But there's nothing in the poem that actually says that. That, I have to say, is purely my own fancy, one might say. 夏経つと印も見えず衣川、いつも船夜、裏しなければ。Of summer weft there is no sign at the river robe, for never do boats draw near its shores. Well, Kanemasa here is using a nutamakura, a poetic location, Koromogawa, which literally translates as river robe, which as I've done here. The river itself is a real place. It exists up in northeast of Japan, in Michinoku, and flows through Iwate. In pre-modern times, the river itself and locations along the river were important militarily. There was a famous military base there, which was used to, where they stationed troops to fight off the Emishi, the northern barbarians who might come down from Hokkaido. And nowadays, the location is probably best known with rather tragic consequences, as it's the location where the great hero of the Genpei War, Minamoto no Yoshitsune, was finally defeated and committed suicide. But references to Koromogawa predate this by centuries. It's often used in poems, in love poems in fact, as the gawa could be the tears the poet is shedding onto his sleeves, or the lady, of course, was shedding onto her sleeves, when unhappy in love. But equally, it could simply be used to add a little bit of extra oomph, a further clothing reference to poems which were talking about clothing in some ways, and that's what Kanemasa really is doing here. 身に近くなると忘れど衣川一重にのみはえこそ頼まね Close to my flesh, to that I am accustomed, yet the river robe in just a single layer, in that I cannot place my trust. Now, again, this is by the Lady Higo, this poem here, and one can read all kinds of things into this. With a modern sensibility, one's tempted to say that she's saying if I'm only wearing a single layer of clothing, it might be a bit risky for me. But I think more likely, given the nature of the period and the types of clothing that ladies wore, that it's yet another reference to the fact that a single layer of online clothing was simply not warm enough at the beginning of the heat of summer. いつしかと花のたもとを脱ぎ替えて、薄き衣の裏目式かな。Suddenly, blossom-laden sleeves have I removed and changed for gossamer garb. How I do despise it. Well, Daishin here is recollecting spring. Blossom hana obviously recollects cherry blossom and the season of spring. And so she's saying that the change to the thin summer garb really marks the end of the beautiful poetic season of spring, and therefore she hates changing into her summer clothing because it means spring is over for yet another year and the cherry blossoms are over. Well, that's it for the poems for this week. I hope you enjoyed this little talk, and I'll see if I can do some more in the future.